Spider-Man PS4 is a great game. But have you ever thought about what its weaknesses are?
They really think they can get us, they checking and drip when I flip out the building.
Well, one of the main problems with this game is the fact that it's so centered around the story that once you finish it, there isn't much more that you can actually do in the game. So you end up kind of bored if you don't decide to replay the story again. Which is why in this video, I will be showing you 5 things that I would personally add to this game to make it last longer, stay interesting, and be much more fun. So let's start off with the difficulty, because right now we have 5 different levels that we can play at, which are all, let's face it, pretty easy to be honest. It does get somewhat intense with the ultimate game mode, but even then it's not much of a challenge, especially if it's your 10th time playing it. What I would recommend is adding a new difficulty or even just updating the current highest one to make it so that you not only take more damage and more shots are fired, but more actual difficulty is added to the game. For example, for the first time you're playing this game, you're most likely going to check out the average difficulty to experience the story, right? So after that, you may play the story again and decide to go for the higher difficulties for more of a challenge. Now, whether this be a new game plus or a brand new one completely, one thing remains the same. You no longer need all these prompts. All of this information that guides you through the game and teaches you how the controls work are no longer needed, and you also don't need to be eased into each battle. Almost every fight in this game has the same structure. You start off with the normal guys with normal weapons, then boots get added, rockets get added, whips get added, and you get the idea. The fight always eases you into the intensity. Now if you're replaying the game, especially on a higher difficulty, you no longer need to be eased into the fight. You're playing this level expecting a challenge, so it should be a challenge. Either start off with the highest intensity and keep that level of fighting consistent throughout, or to have more variation and interest, it should start with one of the highest levels of the fight and then get even more difficult. And this exact same process applies to the boss fights, which also have a similar structure of easing you into the intensity. Eliminating this beginner aspect of the gameplay will already automatically make the higher difficulties much more challenging, and which they could even develop extra layers to each battle to increase the intensity further, but that's more towards the future. And speaking of getting more difficult, another thing that is interesting is the ability to run out of webs. In the movies, MCU in particular, it stays realistic and Peter can in fact run out of webs, and he keeps having to switch his web cartridges to keep using his webs. So bringing this kind of mechanic over to the games will mean 2 things. 1. Running out of webs in the middle of battle would definitely make things more interesting, leaving you dependent on hand-to-hand combat until you decide to refill your shooters again. And 2. This will give us another reason to go out and collect tokens from crimes, bases and loot boxes. Just like in Miles Morales, where we were able to have lens mods along with the suit mods, we could also have web shooter mods to change certain elements and mechanics of the webs that we fire, as well as being able to upgrade how long the web canisters last. This change alone would not only make the game more difficult, but would also help it last longer and gives us more things to focus on afterwards as well. Now in terms of how long the webs should last, I would say around 5 to 10 minutes, which gives us plenty of swinging and combat time. However, rather than it being time based, it could also be based on how many webs we shoot instead, as well as another bar in one of the corners that shows you how much web fluid you have left. But in terms of how you would refill your web shooters, I think it should be similar to Spider-Man Homecoming, where you just take out the empty canisters and replace them with the new ones. And this would also take some time to reset. So you can see why in the heat of battle doing this wouldn't be the most ideal option, which then forces you to fight in a completely different style, which as mentioned before, would make each fight different every time. Now I know some of you are probably thinking, but Synagard, not having webs in a fight as Spider-Man would be impossible. How do you expect us to play? You're the stupidest YouTuber ever. Well, I may not be able to change the last sentence, however I can try to prove to you that it is possible to fight without using webs, which is why I challenged myself to try and beat a Fisk base by using as little web-based attacks as possible. So I was able to take down the base with not that much webs, and the main times that the webs came into play was when the game did it automatically for certain attacks and dodges. So introducing different styles of attacking and dodging should do the trick, which will then give us more of that varied gameplay that we need to make it look interesting. Now on the topic of more to upgrade, something I mentioned in one of my previous videos is the ability to play with damaged suits. Since in cutscenes after major battles, the suit that we decide to play in gets damaged anyways, and also the fact that we already have a playable damaged suit already in the game, it just makes sense that we should be able to play in a damaged version of any suit that we choose. But we could also add some cool gameplay mechanics to this as well. For example, just like during battles and cutscenes, our suit gets progressively more damage. During our free play, it should work the same way as well. The more crime we face and the more health we lose, it should impact the suit and slowly take its toll on it, as well as we can see it becoming more damaged, which you can then repair at a lab or at home, just like we did in the first Spider-Man game. Again, using resources that we've collected from doing missions and challenges. And we can even make it so that once your suit is damaged, each hit you take will then take more of your health to keep it more realistic, and it does also add more of that difficulty to the game. Now, for an obvious yet simple addition, why not have the time of day change as well? We can currently choose the time that we play in, from daytime to nighttime to sunset, but imagine there's a day and night cycle that follows the time of day in the game. The sun will automatically set and become nighttime, then after a while it will rise again and become day again, which means now you will be able to play in so many more lighting scenarios than what you were able to play in before. So we can even have different types of crime for each time of day. Maybe more stores are robbed at night, but more sable patrols are happening through the day. And to make things even more varied, we can also add weather to it too, such as rain, snow, fog. Okay, maybe not the snow, but you get what I mean. Just imagine being able to swing through the city in free play during a sunset with foggy weather, or even just rain with a bit of sun. The options are endless to make the city look visually different each time we play, making the experience feel different each time as well. But if you don't like having the weather and time of day switch all the time, then there should also be that setting where you can choose whether you want the time of day to switch or not. But I know that one thing that should definitely change is the subscribe button down below if you are enjoying this video so far. Okay, so now we've talked a lot about the combat style of the game. What about more of the swinging side? Because as much as this is one of the best parts of the game, it does still get boring after a while, and in Spider-Man 2 this will only become a much larger problem, because right now it takes an average of 3 to 4 minutes to swing around the map of Spider-Man PS4, but the new game is rumoured to have a map that is absolutely massive, which will take you around 19 minutes to swing across. So 19 minutes of swinging is definitely going to be very excessive, especially when you are required to do a mission while being on the completely other side of the map, because let's face it, no one wants to use fast travel. But then, while playing Spider-Man Miles Morales for the first time recently, I've come to really enjoy the swinging side of it much more, due to all the new air tricks and venom boosted travels that wasn't there before. So my solution for the next game would be to add another element to the swinging aspect, which will then give us another way to travel, just like the venom did, but also making things fun and interesting, just like the air tricks did. Which brings me to web gliders. This would make swinging much more interesting, and quicker at times as well, and the mechanics would be quite simple. Just look down and gain more speed, and look up to slow down, just like diving. Now, how we would be able to use this in the game would be similar to the camouflage powers that Miles has, which lets you be invisible for a short amount of time, and once it's over, it will take some time to recharge before you can use it again. But for the web gliders, it should take a bit longer to reset than the invisibility to ensure that you aren't always using it, so it gives you more of a varied swinging method. Or another way it can be implemented is to just have it eat up a focus bar, just like finishers do. Spider-Man PS4 does have this one downside, which if it isn't taken into consideration for the next game, then the combination of both the huge map and doing the same tasks that we've already had for 5 years in the first game has the potential to completely ruin Spider-Man 2. But I have faith in Insomniac that they have actually thought about this problem and have already thought of solutions to help it. But this was just a list of a few of my ideas that could help. If you have enjoyed this video and if you want to see more of it, make sure to check out this video here where I show you 16 suits that I really want to see in Spider-Man 2.